Hey, St. Louis, welcome once again to What Retirement Means to You with Jerry Means, the president and founder of the Means Financial Group. I'm Spike Spangle. Jerry, you're looking sharp. How you feeling today?
Thank you. Looking great. You look pretty good yourself, Spike.
Thank you very much. Wearing some of the St. Louis blues, if you will, but I don't have my yellow tie today.
That's all right.
We want to talk especially about some of the things for this entire upcoming year, some of the retirement planning mistakes, blunders, and hopefully you're going to help people avoid them as much as you can. Sound like a plan?
Sounds like a plan. You know, new year, let's help people not make mistakes.
Yeah. And we've got a whole bunch of months left in this year, so we want to make sure that we're making the right decisions, all kinds of things, everything from your investments to your strategies. But let's start right out with inflation. Over the last couple of years, obviously, we notice costs have gone up, but how exactly does inflation affect a retiree, even if at a light 2 or 3%? Real at-home costs. What kind of things happen to somebody on a fixed income?
Well, first of all, when you're looking at that 3%, there's a lot of things that aren't even part of that 3%. You know, health insurance costs definitely go up more than 3% every year. Medications go up more than 3% every year. I think anyone out there that takes medications or pays health insurance, they can agree to that. Homeowners insurance goes up more than 3%, it seems like, every year. So, you know, the 3% is more your mortgage, utility, groceries, that sort of thing. But there's all these other factors that can kind of sneak up that are the unforeseen inflation factors. But even just the cost of goods, you know, I've talked about this before. If you're retired for 30 years, you might see things double in price twice, you know, 15 years from now and then again in another 15 years. Social Security and pensions aren't keeping up with that. So you have to have your own plan designed to combat that inflation. You might be retired. You might have been retired for a few years now thinking, well, you know what, I've got this all figured out. It's pretty easy. But what's going to happen is down the road, you're going to see that maybe that plan might start to fall apart if you haven't put strategies in place to combat that inflation.
Right. One of the biggest expenditures that people make in their lifetime is, of course, the home, right? A new concept, though, is that actually the largest purchase or funding that we'll do in our entire lifetime is actually the funding of our retirement. We need to make sure we have enough assets in there. Sticking on the home, though, some people might think, well, my costs are going to go down because I'm going to pay off that house in retirement. Do we ever completely get rid of the house costs in retirement?
Well, you might get rid of your mortgage, but you're still going to have the homeowners insurance, maybe homeowners association fees, depending on where you live. And then, you know, you're going to have, you know, the cost of insurance, the utilities you're still going to have. Utilities go up with inflation as well. So really the
repairs
house,
eventually,
taxes,
roof, taxes, and so forth. So the house cost never goes away completely. You might get rid of that mortgage, but also it's not necessarily an income producing asset for you unless you're thinking about selling it and downsizing it, which then there's more costs inside there.
Yeah, the problem with that is inflation can also work in the sense that your house might have went up in value and you're wanting to downsize, but then you go out there and, well, what can I buy for that downsized price? Everything has gone up and it's so expensive. A lot of people have told me, Jerry, I would like to downsize, free up some cash. I don't need this big house to take care of, but there just isn't much out there. And what is out there, it's like, I can't give up my home and go here because it's too small. You know, or
we got the grandkids now. We want to make sure they can come visit.
So downsizing isn't always a solution that works. You know, it's not always an option.
Yeah. As far as other costs, we've got our medical costs, right? So eventually we're going to be turning on that Medicare, and depending on how much we're drawing out, we all know of Uncle Sam on taxes, but then there's Auntie Irma, where we look back at what we've taken out, and it could increase our Medicare costs. I know that you, with your wife, you work a little bit with the Medicare solutions, decisions in there. I think one of the big ones there is, of course, prescriptions. We want to make sure we cover that, because I always hear about some retirees saying, oh, got a new medication, cost me $800 a month.
Yeah, and there's something called the donut hole. And if they're on that medication, they know what that is. But my wife does that in the office. So she's licensed to do the Medicare solutions. She sets up a separate appointment. And that's the great thing about, I feel, about working with our firm is we do the holistic plan. If they come in and they have questions about Medicare, great. I have someone that can help you with that. If they have questions about estate planning, fantastic. I have an attorney that we work with that will also give you a no-cost consultation. If they're worried about someone doing their tax return, not the tax planning, but doing their tax return, we have someone for that we can refer them to take care of that will work with us in conjunction. So it is the holistic plan. But I like to sit down with people and say, okay, let's talk about all of these first and determine if you need to meet with these other people. And if so, let me make that connection for you.
Yeah. Another thing, one of the retirement planning mistakes so we want to make sure you can avoid in this year is not underestimating how long you will live. How often does that happen when somebody comes in?
It happens all the time. I'll have people come in, even friends of mine, and they'll say, well, I'm not worried about that because no one in my family lives past 70. You know what I mean? So if I retire at 65 or 67, I think I'm good. But the truth is, no one knows that, right? Medications have changed and changed how long people are living. We've seen the longevity. That's why Medicare is having the issues that it's having, right? Because they're paying out more benefits than they're collecting because people are living longer. You have to look at family history and diet and exercise. People are more aware today of what's good for them and bad for them. Jobs like, OSHA is coming in and making sure places are safer to work for people. I had relatives that, work some jobs that might not be the best for their health. So I can't plan my longevity based off of what they did for a living versus I work in an office every day. Some people exercise more than others, things like that. Me personally, my grandfather, he lived to be 90 years old. My grandmother was 95,
Yeah, I had longevity too. So I had three grandparents living in their 90s.
Yeah, and he retired in his early 60s. So, he told me, he said, Jerry, I've been retired for 30 years. And he said it was the longest stint of unemployment I ever had in my life.
That's a very long sabbatical he was on.
And he said, I never thought in my wildest dreams I would, live to be 90 years old. Now, luckily, he did some great planning. So he had a successful retirement. But there's a lot of people out there that aren't counting on living to be that age. And they're going to find themselves in trouble, but it's really hard to go back out into the workforce when you're 82 years old. Some people can do it, but most people can't. So let's make sure that you don't have to do that. If you do that, it's because you want to, not because you have to.
Yeah. So some of the retirement planning mistakes we want to help you avoid. Don't underestimate inflation or your own personal longevity. Jerry, you say it so well. What exactly is the on-track retirement review? When that phone number comes up, people can actually call, come in and talk to you, sit down, no cost with you. What are you going to cover?
Yeah, so we're opening up the phones right now. If you give us a call, what we're offering today is a no-cost, no-obligation, on-track review. This is a visit in my office. You're going to sit down with a licensed fiduciary advisor. We're going to help you with tax planning. We're going to look at the risk in your portfolio. We want to look at the fees that you're paying. We want to see if there's any tax planning that we can do, and we want to give you a written income plan. And on top of that, we'll talk about long-term care issues and what your strategy is to protect your retirement. We do all of that holistic planning for no cost, no obligation. Just give us a call, come in and have a visit. Sometimes it's one meeting, sometimes it's 2 or 3 meetings, but my goal is to always leave people better than I found them. If you become a client, that's fantastic, but you don't have to feel obligated. Leave your checkbook at home. Just come in, sit down with us and have a conversation.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. Call that phone number down on the bottom of the screen. Our personal operators are there right now to schedule an appointment for you. More with Jerry Means right after this.
We're a pretty small boutique firm. When you come into our office, it really does have a family feel to it. My wife works in the office. My son works in the office as well. We also have our dog Maui. He's kind of the mascot. When you do come in, you meet our receptionist, Jen, and we call her the director of first impressions because she's great with people. We have a small building that I own. It's very easy to pull up and see us and walk in and get greeted right away. Something that I hear from a lot of people is they just feel comfortable. They feel like they're sitting down and sitting with a friend already. We just sit down with them and educate them and tell them about our services and what we do and how we do it and try to find out if we're a good fit. A lot of my staff is family. So it is a family business, and most people that come in, that's the most important thing to them is their family. So it's good for them to see that in our environment.
Welcome back to What Retirement Means to You with Jerry Means, president and founder of the Means Financial Group. I'm Spike Spangle. We're trying to help you avoid some of the retirement planning mistakes that folks might make on their own. How much is enough in retirement? How much do we need? How do you know when somebody has saved enough? Is that the $1 million question? How much do we need to have, Jerry?
Well, that is the magic question, right? And it's funny because there used to be these commercials on TV where it was like, what's your number? You know, and basically they would have like that number, $1 million or whatever it is, they would have it carved into the shrubbery, or they would see it written in the stones. You know, it was kind of a cheesy commercial, but what they were basically saying is, how much do you need to meet your income goals? That company, by the way, I don't think is around anymore. So someone there miscalculated, but
they miscalculated the numbers.
They miscalculated
they
the
didn't get it
numbers.
right. So, but that's a great point. Is your retirement only numbers based on your savings? What is some of the factors that you bring in?
Well, listen, there's so many other things you have to look at. You have to look at your retirement lifestyle. What is your life expectancy going to be? What kind of health do you have, right? You're going to have to look at your risk tolerance. You know, how much risk reward are you willing to take, or can you afford to take? So there's all these different things. So it's not a magic number. Sometimes people will come in and say, Jerry, is $1 million enough? You're right. People have always heard, you need $1 million. The truth is, I work with people that have more than that and people that have less than that. The goal is their lifestyle. I've had clients come in, house is paid for, Social Security, mortgage. They live pretty frugally. They don't do a lot of traveling. They're not worried about leaving a legacy. They don't have $1 million, but they're living a comfortable retirement, and that's okay. We're here to help those people as well. We do as much as we can. But then I have other folks that come in and maybe they have several $1 million, but they also have several properties, and maybe they're a business owner and they've helped out other family members, and they're not quite there yet. So, and we've made everybody in between. So the goal is to sit down and do an evaluation. And we offer that to clients, as you know, on the on-track review. We want to find out, based off of your lifestyle, your goals, your health, what you're wanting your retirement to look like, are you on track? And if you're not, what can we do to get you on track? If you're already retired and you want to stay retired, let's make sure you're on track to do that as well. So again, it's communication. You know, the number one reason that people leave their advisor is not because they took a market loss. I mean, that can play a factor into it, the returns. But the number one reason people tell me they leave their advisor, lack of communication. Their advisor's not talking with them. You know, maybe they get an email newsletter, maybe they get a phone call once a year. Maybe they come in and do an annual review, but not always. Sometimes it's just every few years. When someone comes into my office and they're a client and they become a client, I immediately set that review for 6 months from that date. Now, they're welcome to come in before then, of course, but I want to touch base at least every 6 months, because life can change, right? Someone gets married, someone gets divorced, there's grandbabies born, right? Someone gets sick. We need to talk about that. Retirement's coming up. You know, maybe they're not retired yet, but they're really close. We need to talk about their situation to make sure they're staying on track.
Jerry, wonderful answer, and I totally understand. There's so many different factors in there, but I got to tell you, I can't let it go. The $1 million. First of all, because you said even if you have $1 million in retirement savings, you might not have $1 million. Now, I had to ask you why on that. You said, well, if it's in a tax-deferred account, you're still going to have to wind down your taxes on that. So is $1 million in a retirement account really $1 million?
No, you and Uncle Sam own that account. You've got a joint ownership there. You just don't realize it. You know, their name's not on there, but it is. They're definitely a beneficiary, and they're definitely a co-owner on that, because once you start pulling those funds out, you have to consider that tax burden. So yeah, again, $1 million is not $1 million.
So if somebody's doing math based on what they have in tax-deferred accounts, they might have the inputs wrong. If you're dividing that account over what you think you can spend over 30 years, are you taking into account the tax part?
Yeah, it's a big miscalculation. And so what we do is we have a tax calculator that we help people look at and say, okay, this is how much I have in a deferred account. If this is my earning interest rate and taxes are this much in the future, this is how it's going to affect me. A lot of people have never really even looked at that. They just were too busy working, living life, saving, contributing to their plan. But this tax calculator that we have is a big help for that.
All right. So the tax calculator, we're going to bring that up for you here in a moment. Meantaxes.com. That's meantaxes.com. Think about what you have in your retirement savings. Are they in tax-deferred accounts? If so, go to meantax.com, meantaxes.com, or you can scan the QR code if you want to right now. Open up your phone to the camera function, click on this QR code over here, go to the website. It's a few inputs. It's less than a couple of minutes. Your name, your email address, and then how much do you have in tax-deferred accounts, what you think your tax rate is. it'll show you how much you're going to have to pay in taxes. So that's your true amount right there. And then how do we maybe unwind that a little bit? That's what you can sit down with someone like Jerry and figure out what to do. Meantaxes.com. I have one more question on the $1 million, if you don't mind.
Sure, go
Is
for
the
it.
$1 million per person? Is this for a couple? Again, it's how do we know? How do you know for somebody? You sit across from people all of the time. How do you know? How do you feel comfortable saying to somebody, this is going to do it? What are kind of inputs or what kind of technology are you using?
So I'll tell you, first of all, it's very rare to get that done in the first meeting. So if someone's expecting to come in and it's all done for you, there's not been a lot of thought put into that plan if something happens. So often it takes 2 or 3 meetings, again, no cost, no obligation for those meetings, to really get to know the person and their situation, make sure I've asked all of the questions. And a lot of times people don't know the answers to those questions. So I have to send them home with a little bit of a homework assignment because for me to do my job, I have to have that information. But once we do that, we have projection tools that we can use that really just kind of help me explain to the client what their situation is. And we can play what ifs. Okay, what if someone does get ill? What if someone does pass away early? How does that affect your situation? So we have tools that help us illustrate that. Now, most people out there, individual investors, it's hard for them to have those tools because some of those tools are very expensive. I'm working with people every day. It makes sense. I own a financial firm. It makes sense for me to have those tools in my office and to pay those expenses, and it helps me help multiple people. But if you're sitting at home, you may not want to pay $3,000, $4,000 for these calculators and these projection tools. And some of the ones that you can find online can be very generic. This is really a tailored type of tool for each individual. So we're able to do that, offer that to people, give them those reports. If you want to claim those, give us a call. We'd be glad to help you. 844-878-1293, and we can give you that no cost, no obligation consultation.
And you have no problem doing that at absolutely no cost. You're going to give them the report, whether they want to become a client or not. Just because they've called the phone number, they come in and they sit down with you, all of this information, no cost.
Yeah, look, not everyone becomes a client, right? My goal has always been just to help people. If I leave them better than I found them, fantastic. But what I have found is more times than not, people want to work with us. And if they decide to work with us, I'm very upfront with how we get paid. There's no, we're not hiding it. We lay all of our cards on the table. Hey, here's what we can do. Here's how we'll help you. Here's what it's like to work with our practice. And if you want to put it in this portfolio, this is what it's going to cost. We go through all of that for you. There's no hidden fees or things like that. But again, that's putting the cart before the horse. We just want to meet you, sit down, have a visit, see if we can even help you and if there's a good fit.
Claim your free review on Jerry's calendar right now. After every broadcast, we leave a couple of weeks worth of time in the calendar. So be one of the first callers right now to schedule your appointment. You can claim that report and review just by dialing the phone number, make your appointment. More with Jerry Means right after this.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Thank you for coming back. You're with Jerry Means, the president and founder of the Means Financial Group. We're hoping to help you avoid some retirement planning mistakes for this year. Taking Social Security at the wrong time. When is the wrong time? Or maybe taking it too soon or too late. How do you factor in Social Security along with the tax strategy?
Well, we're going to look at what the client's age is. Are they married or are they not married? We want to look at their health. Is everyone healthy? What are the difference in the Social Security checks between husband and wife? So there's all these different factors. So there is no right or wrong time. It's all these other factors help us determine. Once we know those answers, then we can help someone determine when is the right and wrong time. Everyone's eligible at age 62, but if they're going to continue to work, it doesn't make sense because there's some penalties if they make too much money. So why take that benefit early, get a lower reduced benefit, and then have to give some of that money back, right? Then we have people that say, well, I'm going to wait till I'm 70 and I'm just going to take money out of my assets. Sometimes that is a good strategy, but we have to look at the assets, make sure that that bridge is going to make sense. But we want to make sure that we have some type of income plan in place to make sure that that happens on time. So it's individually tailored. There is no magic number. Now, I tell people, if you're reading on the internet, right, we always talk about there's so much information on the internet. There are something called break-even points. There's calculators that say, if you draw at 62 and you pass before age 77, it makes sense that you did right by drawing it early. If you live past age 77, you would have been better off to defer your Social Security. Well, the truth is no one knows how long they're going to live. No matter what they think, no one really knows. So we have to look at all these other factors to help them determine the best time to do that.
Right. And one of the easiest things, you can go on to ssa.gov. You can find out yourself kind of on the timing and how much you're going to get. Now, for those who've already started their Social Security, you said one of the ways they can become efficient is by knowing their taxes. And again, you put together meantaxes.com. Why? Because taxes are mean?
Yeah, it's a funny story about that. It started with my teachers when I was in school, and they would do roll call, and they would say, Jerry means, are you mean? It was funny till about the fourth year of school. Then it was kind of old, but it happened all the way through school. And people still do that when I'm on the phone with them. They'll say, Jerry means, are you mean? Of course not. I'm a very nice guy. However, taxes are mean. So we thought, hey, mean taxes, kind of a good catch. So check out the calculator that we have on there. It's very helpful. There's no cost, no obligation. It's free to use. So we'd love for you to go on to meantaxes.com, check it out. You also can click on the QR code and right on your phone, and you can download a report right there.
So for someone who's already turned on their Social Security, they've got a large amount of savings in tax-deferred accounts, going to meantaxes.com will tell them how much more they're going to pay in taxes throughout the rest of their lifetime. Can they become a little more efficient? And by efficient, I mean not have to pay as much on their Social Security taxes if they do something like a Roth conversion? Or is it too late if they've already turned on Social Security?
There's some things with Social Security that we can still do. But again, the tax tool is just that. It's a tool. It's not a solution, right?
Okay.
So it's to start that conversation. So again, everyone's situation is so different. Some of these questions I know, I hate to dance around the answer, but it's not a cookie cutter answer.
But for the definitive answer, they can go to meantaxes.com. They'll find out how much they're going to pay in taxes. Then they can call you. You can see if you can help them out with it.
Absolutely. And we do that at no cost, no obligation. We're going to put together a plan for them, present it to them, and then it's up to them if they want us to implement it or not. But we do that part at no cost, no obligation, and then they can decide if they want to work with us or not.
You've had a great perspective on that. You go into your CPA, most Americans, and you say, I want to pay as little in taxes as possible. We do it every year in the front quarter of the year. But you said this kind of tax planning is more looking forward rather than looking in reverse.
Yeah, I always use the analogy, there's a reason why the windshield is a lot larger than the rearview mirror, right? Because we want to look forward. There's not a lot you can do about what's behind you. So when you go to a tax preparer, what are they going to ask? Have you made it? What's the contributions to your plan? How much interest have you received? What was your income this year? Did you make any IRA contributions or any deductions, charitable deductions, things like that? It's all what have you done in the last year, right? It's already over. We want to look at going forward. What are some of the things that we can do to make your next return look better, or your return 5 years from now, 10 years from now? How can we combat increased taxes, increased inflation? We want to make that picture look better. We got to do something now, though. You can't wait till it's over with. You can't win the game in the final minute always. I guess sometimes
no, but you could. Well, sometimes you can, but you could also lose it by not properly preparing. So go to meantaxes.com. Absolutely free tool. You can do it right now. Type it into your web browser, type it into your phone if you want to, or scan that QR code over there. Your phone will take you right there. It's absolutely easy, a few inputs and no cost to you. Find out how much you're going to pay in taxes. Last couple of things I want to ask you on things I want to make sure that we're aware of as we go into this year. Taking too much risk in the investments, taking too little risk in the investments to keep us retired. which is more of a concern for you this year. What do you see more often when folks come into your office the first time?
What I see more often is people taking too much risk, because if you lose 20% in your portfolio, it takes 32% to get back to even. It's not like you can lose 20, earn 20, and be right back to where you were. Because once you lose money, it takes that much more to get back to in place. You add on top of that distributions, pulling money out while the account is down, that really makes it hard to climb. I always tell people it's easier to fall in a hole than it is to climb out of one, right? So, let's make sure that you're not taking, I'm not saying you shouldn't take risk, but you don't want to take more risk than you need to. And let's segment your investments. Let's have your emergency fund, that income fund that income bucket that we design an income stream that you're dependent on. Then maybe we have that risk bucket for inflation and growth down the road. So it's very important to know what your dollars are doing. Assign them tasks. We do that if you're at a company, right? You have a CEO, a president, you have workers that do different jobs. Your money should have different jobs.
Nice. It's assigning different jobs, different tasks to the duration of what you want to use that money for. Let's look at the other side, though. Taking too little risk. I can understand some people might think, well, I got here to retirement. I don't want to lose this. I think you've asked that before. When you look at somebody, say, how much of this can you afford to lose in your retirement? Somebody says, well, I don't want to lose any of it.
Yeah.
So we get too conservative, but we have to factor in things like inflation over long periods of time, correct?
Correct. And, risk is different to everyone. I can ask you, how do you feel about risk? And your answer might be different than someone else's, or your definition of risk might be different than the person that comes in after you. So I have to have conversations. Okay, forget if you lost 20% or 30%. What if you lost $300,000? What if you lost $400,000? How would you feel? Sounds a lot worse than 30 or 40%, right? Well,
Yeah.
I can make it right back. Oh, I lost 400,000. I can make it right back. Doesn't have the same ring to it, right? So you have to be very careful with that. So again, it's okay to have risk in the portfolio, but let's make sure that those dollars are segmented for that risk.
All right, we can do this together here. The On Track Retirement Review: investments, taxes, estate planning conversation, medical choices, long-term care. Am I leaving anything out, Jerry?
I think you nailed it. We're basically just going to try to help people, leave them better than we found them. There's no cost, no obligation. Give us a call, come in, sit down with a fiduciary advisor. We would love to have you.
Thank you so much for watching What Retirement Means to You. Call that phone number right now. Schedule your appointment. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week.